Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. We're here today with the movers and shakers of real estate appraisal. And today we have with us Mr. Real Estate Appraiser in the Cleveland area, despite the fact his company is called Aspen Appraisal Service, Mr. Jamie Owen. Jamie, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you again.
Hi, Jamie, thank you. It's good to see you. Now, Aspen Appraisal Service out of Cleveland, isn't that an awfully wide working area? Like, you got to know a lot of real estate between Aspen and Cleveland, right?
That is very true. And, knowing now, thinking about the way I named my company, I probably would have named it something different. But I grew up in Colorado and I loved going to Aspen to just hike, and it was just a beautiful spot.
Oh, it is.
So it's called my company Aspen Appraisals. But I always get, is Mr. Aspen around? So
Mr. Aspen. Okay. Yeah, Fred Aspen here. How are you? Okay. Well, good. And now that everybody knows it's Aspen Appraisals, and if they want to get a hold of you, and we'll repeat this at the end, but Jamie, if somebody wants to get a hold of you with a question or a comment, especially about what we're going to talk about today, how do they go about doing that?
they can go to my website at aspenappraisalservices.com, or they can email me at jamieowen at aspenappraisalservices.com, or
Okay,
they can go to
excellent.
Cleveland Appraisal blog, my blog.
Cleveland Appraisal Blog, Aspen Appraisal Services. Okay, that all makes sense. Okay. Now, Jamie, how long have you been appraising real estate?
Well, about 25 years. I started in 98 with my apprenticeship. I was licensed in 2000, and then I upgraded to certified residential in 2007. And I've been working full time that whole time.
Okay. Now, when you got started, were you like most everybody in the appraisal business and just appraising houses for the GSEs?
Yeah. Yeah. For quite a while. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you cut your teeth doing GSE work. All right. When you got started in the business, did you find that particularly exciting, particularly rewarding, or was it, just a way to spend between 8 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon doing something other than watching TV?
I really loved it. I enjoy being an appraiser. I still do, I found it to be very exciting. Uh, I like being able to go into homes and look at them. I like sitting down and looking at things analytically. You get a little bit of both with appraisal work. So I loved it. Even uh, right up to '08, I started to slow down a little bit because I was competing with uh, appraisers that maybe were hitting numbers that I couldn't hit. So
We're a
I
little bit
slowed
more,
down.
a little bit more flexible in their ethics.
Exactly. And I started losing work during that time period, and that was a little discouraging. But then a little after '08, things were tanking, and then I got busy doing review work for a while, and that kept me going in bank work. So all in all, I've really enjoyed it. It's an interesting profession to be in.
Okay. Now, you started out doing GSE work.
Mhm.
You got into doing review work, and while that is not specifically for the GSEs, that's where they're going. So it's an extension of GSE work, but it was a little bit different. But one of the last times that we spoke together, and full disclosure, Jamie and I know each other, and we've seen each other at conferences, so on and so forth. So we chat. One of the last times we chatted, you indicated that your presence on LinkedIn and other social media had been a little bit thin,
Yeah.
and you indicated that it was simply because you were, well, tell us what you were doing, and most importantly, why, and then we'll get into the house.
Well, I've been doing a lot more non-lender work, and it has just taken a lot more time to develop that work. And the nature of the work seems to be more time consuming in many respects. And we'll talk about that. Um, and then just the crazy changes in the market. it's taken me longer to complete my appraisals lately because, there's so much to analyze. The prices are changing so rapidly, up and then down and up. It just takes me a lot more time to analyze things. And now there's less data, because the volume of sales has slowed down. So we're trying to analyze things with less data, and all that just seems to be very time consuming.
Um, so you were doing houses,
Mhm.
and now you have transitioned over into less lender work. Okay. What types of work? Oh, okay. Let's back up even further. Okay. So you were at a crossroads. You said, okay, I'm good residential real estate appraiser. I got all this experience, all this training. I'm state certified residential, blah, blah, blah. Oh, let me get out of that and go into something else tomorrow. Okay. Now, obviously, that's not what happened, but walk us through your transition because, and you know where I'm going with this, but walk us through this transition, the the decisions you had to make, the training you had to take, the sacrifices you had to make, etc., to move out of a niche that had been very successful for you into another niche. And then when you finish that, we'll get into more detail.
Okay, sounds good. Well, it's been kind of a slow moving transition. In fact, let me take you back to 2015. In 2015, I was reading or read an article in an appraisal magazine. I can't remember if it was the Appraisal Buzz or some other magazine, and it stated that at some time in the future, technology is going to get to a point where appraisers are not going to be needed for appraising relatively simple properties when there's a lot of data. And when I read that, I was already using a software that used multiple regression, and it would provide a most probable sales price based on its algorithm. And I noticed that a fairly regular amount of time, it was right in there. And so when I read that article and I was thinking about that, I thought, I could see that happening. And it's funny because that was quite a while ago. But that was the moment I started thinking about transitioning slowly into getting a little more non-lender work to diversify my business. Uh, then in 2016, I began to refresh my website so that it was more appealing to uh, people that weren't lenders, buyers, attorneys. And so I was in the process of doing that. And my wife and I went out to Placerville, California to visit some friends. And one night I couldn't sleep. So I jumped on my phone and I wonder what appraisers are doing in California these days. And lo and behold, I found Ryan Lundquist's appraisal blog, Sacramento Appraisal Blog. And I'd never even heard of a blog, so I don't get out that much. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. He's sharing information that he knows, his knowledge about appraising with others, his knowledge of the market. And I thought it was great. So that year I started a blog on my website at aspenappraisalservices.com. And I started to get a little bit of work from that, nothing earth shattering. But then I started the Cleveland Appraisal blog in 2018. I started going into agents' offices. I did some lunch and learns for banks. And I slowly started to get more non-lender work as, your name gets out there that you do that kind of work. And so about 2019, about 30% of my work was non-lender work, divorce work, probate, private cash deals, things like investors, things like that. And then, interestingly enough, in 2019, there was a local appraiser who reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I love your blog. I've been reading it for a while and I'm getting ready to retire. And I'm looking for a couple of appraisers that I feel comfortable referring my work to." And all she did was non-lender work. So we talked and visited a little bit. We even took a USPAP class together. And she began to refer some of her work to me. That was in 2019 into 2020. Then 2020 hit, and the market, as you know, it went crazy. That the real estate market was insane. And that was about the time where I was starting to really begin to get more non-lender work. And so to what you were alluding to, I really had to make some hard decisions in 2020, 2021, 22. Am I going to take on all of this bank work that is like flooding my email, or am I going to start taking on more of this non-lender work? And I really struggled with that, and I decided to give my priority to non-lender work, even though at the time it wasn't paying quite as much, and I could have actually made a lot more money doing the lender work at that time because of just the volume. But I decided to just focus on my non-lender work and turn down a lot of bank work. And interestingly, looking back now, I'm glad that I did. So that kind of led me to where I'm at today.
Gotta hit the mute button here. So it was the concept of, oh, this other appraiser says, help me out, I'm retiring, etc. And then you had plenty of bank work, but you made this specific decision to, I'm going to use the word sacrifice. I don't know that that's the right word, but it's the word I'm going to use. You made the decision to sacrifice the bank work to stick with the private work. Now, I'm assuming that on a job per job basis, the private work paid more. Is that correct?
Not really. I wish it did.
Okay.
It's starting to now, actually. But at that point, it
All right.
wasn't. And part of the reason is that there are some really good appraisers in my area that I compete with for non-lender work. And, their prices were a little lower than bank work. And so I've had to compete with that to some degree. However, as people begin to see my work, not to compare, I just work hard with my appraisal work, and people can see that and are willing to pay me more. In fact, I had an attorney that just recently reached out to me and said, I think you should be charging more than you're charging for what you're doing. And I just started raising my fees recently. So it's interesting.
All right, let's get back. Let's get back to the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you said, all right, I'm going to transfer out of residential work into non-residential work. All right, and you mentioned the concept of lunch and learn for banks. What did you do so that a bank would call you and say, "Hello, come do a lunch and learn"? What was the process there? And I'm going here so that other appraisers can say, "Oh, that sounds interesting. What do I do?" So, what did you do?
Well, with the bank lunch and learns, I actually had a title company that reached out to me because they would put these things together to attract the banks to use them for their title work. But they were looking for speakers that could share some insights in different aspects of real estate. And they had seen some of the things that I had done on social media, just different advertisements and stats and things like that. So the title company reached out to me, which really made it easy. They set everything up. They just invited me to be a speaker. And then for the realtor offices, when I would meet a realtor to do an appraisal for a bank, I would just let them know that I would be happy to do a lunch and learn. You come into their office, just answer any questions they have. And a number have taken me up on that over the years. I do a handful a year like that.
Okay. Now, so in other words, you had to do something proactively.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
while you were not out knocking on doors and you were not out spending thousands of dollars advertising, you did have to shave and shower and get dressed up and get out from behind your desk and actually
Yes.
go out and proactively say, here is a service I provide. I will be happy to provide it to you. Okay. All right. So, all right. Now, from a standpoint, let's take a look. Okay. Let's take a look at money, not how much comes in, but other than your time, other than preparing for the lunch and learn and presenting the lunch and learn, etc. Did you have to invest a great deal of money in making this transition?
Not really. No, other than time, like blogging although I haven't done it as much recently because I've been busy. But I used to spend about 5 hours a week putting that together, or podcast, or calling people. So it was about 5 hours a week, roughly. And so time is money in that sense, but it was nothing out of pocket. I just had to devote some time to doing those things.
So
But
you didn't have to budget $5,000 to hire some consultants.
no, not at all.
Okay. All right. So it was proactive on your part. It was the expenses were essentially zero other than your time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Essentially, all right. Because that's important. Now, in making this transition, now you're state certified residential real estate appraiser.
Mhm.
In making this transition to non-commercial work, I'm assuming that this did not include a transition to commercial work. Am I correct?
Correct. I don't do any commercial work.
Okay, so you were able to give up one portion of your residential work, but yet you were able to replace it with more residential work, but not for the GSEs. Therefore, you were not worried about forms. You were not worried about ROVs. You were not worried about reviews. You were a whole lot less worried about the state of Ohio getting involved, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true. Mhm.
So, uh, while there was no more formal training, but in the same vein, if I could sum up those characteristics we just went through, there was a whole lot less pressure on you, or is there still a lot of pressure? It's just different.
I think it's different. I think there is less pressure, but there is some pressure, and it's different. Like, for instance, like when I do an appraisal for litigation or divorce, I always have to imagine, defending my work in a court setting. So there's some anxiety that goes along with that, um, that you don't get with the GSE work. Uh, but on the other hand, uh, when you work hard to do good work, it's not that someone couldn't make you look dumb, but you feel good about, you can answer all the questions that are asked to you. So, but there's a little bit of anxiety in knowing that you could be cross-examined. Um, so that's part of it. And then the other thing is, with like divorce work, it's a little more contentious. When somebody's refinancing their home or purchasing a home, it's usually something exciting with the homeowner. But with like divorce and litigation work, there's a little bit of a negative aspect of the situation that you've got to deal with. We've got to be neutral, disinterested, and sometimes you got parties going back and forth with each other, and so there's a little bit of pressure there. But I mean, we have to be neutral no matter who our clients are and what we're doing the appraisal for. So, but I found that to be a little bit different than lender work.
You mentioned litigation and you mentioned cross-examination. Have you done a lot of work where you ended up going to court as an expert witness?
I have, to this date, not gone to court, with the exception of tax appeal work, where I have gone down to the state level to testify, and I've been cross-examined by the Board of Education's attorney if they disagreed with my number. But as far as litigation and divorce, I have not had to testify yet. I've had times where I've been outside the courtroom door ready to go in. I've had a handful of times where I've been subpoenaed, and they've always stipulated to my number or worked things out. So I have not had to do that yet. Yesterday, I was on call all day. I had a client I'd done a divorce appraisal for, and she asked me to be on call in case I needed to run in to talk about my work. And then that fell through. So I know it's going to happen, but so far it hasn't.
Okay, so far it hasn't happened. Oh, okay, now earlier you mentioned your blogs and you mentioned your podcast, and so okay, let's talk about that. Did you find that your blogs and your podcast were a sufficient adjunct to your non-lender work, or do you do them, or did you do them because they were just fun, And are you going to continue to do them because you think it really helps what you do?
That's a question I ponder a lot. I think that my blog has helped, just that appraiser, the local appraiser that's referred business to me. She is officially retired now. She wouldn't have known about me if I hadn't have had the blog. So in that way, it's been a huge help to me. And other local appraisers actually will refer people to me that they don't want to deal with non-lender work, but they know that I do. So I get referrals from other appraisers. So my blog has helped in that regard. The podcast, I'm not quite so sure about that, because the way I have presented the podcast is more of a nationwide audience. So I don't know how much that's really helped me, but I just enjoy doing it. I really miss it. It's just, it does, as you know, it takes a lot of time to edit things, and I just haven't had the time, but I haven't completely given up on it. It's just, I've got to figure out how to carve out some time for it. But the blog, I think, is something that would benefit appraisers if they started it, if they're trying to get the word out that they do non-lender work, and just help people to appreciate what we do, why we do it. And one thing that blogging and podcasting has helped me with is being a better appraiser, because the last thing you want to do is to write an article or put out a podcast that gives bad information, because then that just makes me look bad. So hopefully I haven't done that. Uh, but it's helped me to be a better appraiser. I really have to do my research too before I talk about a subject, to make sure that what I'm sharing with the public is good information.
When it comes to your blog, did you write it all by yourself, or did you hire an editor or a ghostwriter, or you just sat down at your computer and you started banging something out?
Basically, that's it. Although I've had a lot of guest bloggers in recent years, because they've reached out to me and asked if they can share their articles on my blog. So actually, it's helped me to have some continued content on my blog since I've been busy. But like when I write an article, it's just me. And if there's a typo or something that sounds stupid, my wife will immediately let me know with joy.
Yeah,
So,
they're
but
good at
yeah,
they're
you got
good at
no
that, aren't
editors.
they? Yeah. Yeah, we may be married to the same woman. Okay, now, there are appraisers out there who are gonna say, "I could never write a blog in 10,000 years."
Yeah.
But yet you said, "Oh, I'm gonna write a blog." So you sat down there and metaphorically rolled a piece of paper into your typewriter and started typing. Is that basically what happened?
That's basically it. Yeah.
And did the first couple of them suck?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
they did.
with the time and practice, did they get better?
They did. They
Yeah,
did. And I learned a lot from other bloggers like Ryan Lundquist. I hope I'm okay to mention names here,
it's fine, it's fine.
but like Tom Horn,
Uh-huh.
Jonathan Miller. I mean, they all write great content for the public that I've enjoyed, and I've
Mm,
learned a lot from them about how to blog in a way that is meaningful to the public. And
mm.
I'll put little, funny little gifts or things to liven it up a little bit. And so for me, it's fun, but it took some time. Yeah.
Alright, now your blog centers on Cleveland, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And some appraiser is sitting there in Little Rock, Arkansas, going, "Well, why in the world should I blog about what's happening in Little Rock, Arkansas, when, that's one town in the United States?" And okay, you were writing about Cleveland, and Ryan writes about Sacramento, and Jonathan writes about Manhattan, but yet these apparently are all widely read blogs. So, why is somebody in Little Rock, Arkansas, so concerned about what's happening in Cleveland?
Well, there are people that have reached out to me. They've read my blog, from other states that are looking to buy properties in Cleveland, and they didn't know an appraiser, but they read my article and knew that I did that. That's happened a good number of times in history of my appraising. and blogging. So there's that. You never know who might be interested in real estate in a particular area. So that gets your name out there in ways that maybe we hadn't thought of before. And I think just educating people on what we do and why we do it and how we do it, I think it benefits everybody. It benefits people in our local area. It benefits our profession if we do it in a professional way. It helps people to have some trust in what we do. And I think we're lacking in that to some degree. The public's trust. And I always hear public trust, but I always like to finish the statement in my mind. It's the public's trust in us as appraisers that we're competent and we're going to do good for them as far as reflecting the market. And I think that blogs can help to do that. And so that can help across the board. I do have appraisers that reach out to me too, that read my blogs that are new. And I don't have any apprentices. I'm just not in a position to take on an apprentice right now. But I do help appraisers who call me and they say, I have no idea how to extract an adjustment from the market. Can you show me how you do it? And I will definitely take the time to share that with my fellow appraisers. Not that I'm all that, but I share what I know, and that helps them. So blogging can help a lot of people in a lot of different areas outside of where we're located.
And the blogging didn't take any extra training. There's no apprenticeship. There's no blogging school.
Nope.
You just sit down, roll the metaphorical paper into the typewriter and start typing.
Basically that's it. I do not have a college degree. I do enjoy writing, so that does help. But just because I enjoy it doesn't mean I'm good at it. but if you read other people's work, you have a little bit of an idea of how to write in a way that is meaningful. But yeah, I don't have any blogging training at all.
just on the job training.
On the job training, yeah.
Jamie, you and I recently met up at a deal, Ohio. What's the acronym?
OCAP, Ohio Coalition of Appraisers.
Ohio Coalition of Appraisers. Yeah. Now, that was a one-day affair, and there were a number of speakers and a nice lunch. Do you recommend that appraisers attend these kind of things? Or you were just mentioning that, appraisers don't have a lot of experience in writing. Should appraisers be sitting in the basement writing blogs for the practice? Or again, should they be getting out, shaving, showering, dressing up, getting out, and networking with other appraisers and other folks interested in the appraisal business?
I really think that networking is important. And in all honesty, this is something I could do better at. I always attend our OCAP summer seminar. I've been weak at attending other events. I was hoping to attend was the AXE conference in Sacramento, but for personal circumstances, I couldn't make that one. I am hoping to make the one. I'm planning on the one in Colorado Springs. It helps I've got family in Denver, so that'll help with that.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things that I really like about these kinds of venues. You do get to talk with other appraisers, and you can learn a lot just in a conversation about how to tackle certain things, what other appraisers are going through. And it gives us some confidence, and we could use a little confidence these days. We're not alone. There's a lot of us out there that are trying to figure things out, learn, grow. And so there's a lot of benefit that comes with networking with other appraisers. And even if you can't attend a conference, if you can jump on something online, there's live classes online where you get to visit with people. And it's really helped me. I really like in-person classes, even though a lot of what I take now is online. I love in-person classes where you get to just visit with your fellow appraisers, see what they're going through. And I almost always pick up something that will benefit me personally in my business.
Okay, Jamie, thank you. Okay, as we wrap this up, let's get back to what we were originally talking about. Okay, so an appraiser calls you up and says, Jamie, I heard you on the podcast with Tim, and I'm looking to transition from lender work to something else. I'm just not happy with it anymore, and I can see that the market there is shrinking. Therefore, I've got to do something else. Okay, now I'm not asking you to outline, what they should do on a day by day basis, but if you could give them one uh, uh, a bit of advice, if you could tell them what they should do to start, or who they should contact, or a class they should take, or something, what would you recommend?
First thing I'd recommend is taking classes that are going to enhance your skills to a point where you feel competent in taking work outside of bank work. It's the work's the same to some degree. I mean, the way we develop market value doesn't change because we go from a bank to an attorney, but there are nuances, so learning how to be an expert witness, taking classes on how to sharpen your skills when it comes to market analysis, highest and best use, things like that. If those are things that an appraiser feels weak about, that you'll want to get those strengthened up and shored up, because then if you have more confidence, it's a little easier to go to an attorney and market yourself if you feel like you can competently answer the questions that someone may raise in an appraisal. So that's first and foremost. And I know that you didn't ask me to plug you, but I really do love the classes that you and Scott Cullen put on, the how to excel as an appraiser with appraiser e-learning. I've taken all 4 of them, and the tools that you provide, the Excel tools, I use them in every appraisal. They're fantastic. So I didn't get CE for those classes, but I'm not really concerned about CE. That comes with just, taking classes, enough classes, but you learn something that can benefit you. So I would recommend taking classes that are going to help you to sharpen your skills. That's first and foremost. And I think that once you've got some confidence, then just start getting the word out to agents, knock on some doors of attorneys, tell them you're ready to take some non-lender work. I would tell them you don't have any experience in doing so, but you're willing to learn, and someone will give you a shot. And then when you do good work, people notice it. Last week, I had 2 appraisals. They were referred to me from attorneys. They were on opposing sides, but they saw my appraisal and they appreciated it. And so they refer their clients to me. So doing good work can go a long way as well. So that's my best advice, I think.
I gotta push the mute button. Okay. Jamie, thank you for that advice. I appreciate it. Again, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do so?
Yeah, aspenappraisalservices.com, clevelandappraisalblog.com. All of my contact information is on those 2 websites. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. I love talking with my fellow appraisers.
Jamie, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your advice today. I'm sure that this is going to be interesting to a lot of appraisers who, they're laying awake nights staring holes into the ceiling, saying, "Okay, what am I going to do?" And this is going to give them a little bit of impetus toward making the necessary changes that not only they need to make, but they want to make. So, thank you for sharing that with us. And
My honor.
uh, you talked about your blog, and you talked about AspenAppraisalServices.com, and you gave us your email address, Owen at appraisalservices.com. So yeah, folks, get in touch with him. That's why he's there. He's there to help. So Jamie, thank you. We appreciate it. It's always good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
And thank you. And I hope to see you in Colorado Springs.
I'm looking forward to it very much. It's going to be fun.
Trade. We can exchange some trade secrets out there.
Definitely.
So, Jamie, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to watch this. We appreciate it. If you have any questions of me, Tim at theappraisersadvocate.com. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Now I'm trying to turn this thing off. without closing everything down. There we go.